Her boots scuffed the courthouse steps, each scrape a small rebellion against the silence swallowing her. Major General Evelyn Carter, 45, stood alone under the Georgia sun, her Air Force dress blues, crisp despite the humidity clinging to her skin. Sweat beaded beneath her collar, but her face remained a mask of stone. Inside, laughter spilled from the open doors, sharp, mocking, aimed at her. A young clerk had just mispronounced her name, dragging the vowels like a taunt, and the gallery had erupted. She heard it all, the snickers, the whispers of uppity, the rustle of starched suits shifting in judgment. Her silver star, pinned discreetly above her heart, gleamed in the light, but no one noticed. Not yet. The courthouse smelled of wax and old wood, the kind of place where history clung to the walls like damp rot. Evelyn stepped inside, her heels clicking on the polished floor, each step measured, deliberate. The laughter died as eyes turned to her, some curious, some hostile, most dismissive. She was not here for herself. She had come for a dead airman's family, a 20-year-old kid from Macon who had shielded his squad from a grenade in Syria. His widow, barely 22, sat in the front row, clutching a folded flag. The Air Force had denied her benefits on a technicality, claiming his death fell outside active duty. Evelyn knew better. She had read the reports, seen the shrapnel scars in the photos. She had carried his casket herself. Judge Harlan Brooks presided, his voice booming from the bench like a sermon. 63, with a face carved from years of unchallenged power, he leaned forward, his glasses glinting under fluorescent lights. "This is a court of law, not a memorial," he said, his gaze flicking to Evelyn's uniform, lingering on the silver star. "Remove that decoration, General." "It has no place here." His tone carried the weight of a man who had never bled for anything beyond a paper cut. Evelyn stood taller, her hands clasped behind her back, fingers brushing the scars hidden beneath her sleeves, remnants of a cockpit fire over Fallujah. 22 years of service, 3 deployments, a command over 4,000 airmen, and now this. A small-town judge demanding she strip away her honor. The gallery murmured, a mix of veterans and locals, their whispers like static in her ears. She caught fragments, her rank, her race, her nerve. A white-haired man in a VFW cap shook his head, his lips tight with disapproval. A corporate lawyer in a tailored suit smirked, scribbling notes. "Your Honor," Evelyn said, her voice low, steady, the kind that had calmed panicked pilots mid-mission. "This medal represents lives saved, not my own pride. I wear it for those who cannot." Her words hung in the air, heavy as the diesel fumes she remembered from forward operating bases. Brooks snorted, his jowls quivering. "I don't care for your stories, General. My courtroom, my rules. Remove it or I'll have you removed." The room stilled. Evelyn's jaw tightened, a muscle flickering beneath her skin. She felt the weight of every eye, every judgment, every assumption about who she was, a black woman, a general, a threat to the order of things. Her fingers grazed the metal, cool against her palm, and for a moment, she was back in that burning cockpit, her co-pilot's screams echoing in her skull. She had not faltered then. She would not now. A young security guard, his desert-tan boots scuffed from a rock, hesitated at the judge's nod. His name tag read Martinez. His eyes met Evelyn's, a flicker of recognition passing between them, soldier to soldier. "Ma'am," he murmured, barely audible. "I'm sorry." She gave him the slightest nod, absolving him of the moment. He was not the enemy. Brooks leaned back, savoring his control, unaware of the storm brewing in the room's corners. In the third row, a freelance journalist named Clara Hensley adjusted her glasses, her phone discreetly recording. Clara had been tipped off weeks ago by a retired colonel, Evelyn's old mentor, about a pattern of bias in Brooks' rulings. 26 cases, all involving black veterans, all denied benefits or sentenced harshly compared to white counterparts. Evelyn had spent months documenting it. Every sneer, every skewed verdict, every offhand remark. The evidence sat in a cloud drive, backed up twice, shared with a civil rights lawyer named Marcus Tate. The widow, LaToya Green, reached for Evelyn's hand, her fingers trembling. "Please, General," she whispered, tears streaking her face. "Just take it off." "I can't lose you, too." Evelyn's heart clenched, but her face betrayed nothing. She squeezed LaToya's hand, her grip firm, grounding. "Some fights," she said softly, "are worth standing for." Brooks's gavel cracked, the sound sharp as a rifle shot. "Enough. Martinez, escort her out." The guard moved slowly, his reluctance a silent protest. Evelyn held her ground, her gaze locked on Brooks, unyielding. She saw it then, the flicker of unease in his eyes, the crack in his armor. He was used to breaking people, but she was not breaking. From the back of the room, a gray-haired woman stood, her posture regal despite her age. Dr. Vivian Powell, a retired federal judge, had come at Evelyn's quiet request, her presence a calculated move. Vivian's daughter, Clara, glanced at her mother, their shared purpose unspoken. 2 other veterans rose, then 3 more, their silence louder than any shout. The gallery shifted, tension coiling like a spring. Evelyn's lips curved, the barest hint of a smile. Brooks thought he held the power, but he had not seen her plan. For 6 months, she had built a network. Lawyers, journalists, a congresswoman with a vendetta against judicial overreach. Every word in this room was being recorded, not just by Clara, but by a tiny transmitter in Evelyn's service ribbon, its signal streaming to Tate's office in Atlanta. "Last chance, General," Brooks growled, his voice betraying a tremor. "Remove the medal or you're in contempt." Evelyn's eyes never left his. She saw the man behind the robe, petty, fragile, clinging to a throne built on fear. "Your Honor," she said, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 missions, "the only contempt here is for the sacrifices you dismiss." The gavel trembled in Brooks' hand. He raised it, ready to strike, but the room was no longer his. Evelyn felt the shift, the air charged with something unstoppable. Martinez paused mid-step, his hand hovering over his cuffs. LaToya's breath hitched, her eyes wide with hope and fear. Clara's phone caught every second, the lens unblinking. And then, from the hallway, a door creaked open. Footsteps echoed, deliberate, unhurried. Someone was coming, someone Brooks had not expected. Evelyn's pulse quickened, but her face remained calm, her silver star gleaming like a beacon. The fight was just beginning. The courthouse hallway stretched long and dim, its fluorescent lights buzzing like distant wasps. Major General Evelyn Carter stood just outside the courtroom, her wrists unbound, the silver star still pinned to her chest. The security guard, Martinez, lingered nearby, his eyes darting between her and the door as if expecting a trap to spring. The air smelled of stale coffee and floor polish, but beneath it, Evelyn caught the faint tang of her own sweat. Sharp, alive, a reminder of nights spent waiting in desert outposts. Her pulse thrummed, steady but quick, as footsteps approached from the far end of the hall. Inside the courtroom, Judge Harlan Brooks had regained his composure, his voice booming again, dismissing the interruption as a minor delay. "This court will not be swayed by theatrics," he declared, his gavel poised like a weapon. The gallery sat tense, their murmurs hushed but electric. LaToya Green clutched her husband's folded flag tighter, her knuckles pale against her skin. Clara Hensley, the journalist, kept her phone angled discreetly, capturing every word, every shift in Brooks' posture. Dr. Vivian Powell, the retired judge, sat motionless, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm. The door swung open and Marcus Tate entered, his navy suit sharp, his stride unhurried. 48, A former JAG officer turned civil rights lawyer, he carried a leather briefcase that held 6 months of Evelyn's work. Transcripts, recordings, affidavits from 26 black veterans wronged by Brooks's court. Behind him came Congresswoman Lena Harris, 55, her pearl earrings glinting under the lights. Her face was a mask of restrained fury, the kind honed from years of fighting battles in Washington. 2 reporters trailed her, their cameras flashing, and a federal prosecutor named Daniel Vaughn brought up the rear, his badge catching the light. Brooks's gavel froze mid-air. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice cracking at the edges. Evelyn, standing just beyond the threshold, caught the flicker of fear in his eyes. She knew that look. Prey, realizing the hunter had been watching all along. Her fingers brushed the transmitter hidden in her service ribbon, its green light pulsing faintly against her skin. Every word in this room was streaming to Tate's office, where a team of lawyers waited, ready to file a federal injunction. Tate stepped forward, his voice calm but cutting. "Your Honor, this court is now under federal scrutiny for allegations of systemic bias. We have evidence, substantial evidence, of discriminatory practices spanning 3 years. He set his briefcase on the counsel table, the click of its latches loud in the silence. General Carter has documented 26 cases of black veterans denied benefits or sentenced disproportionately. We're here to ensure justice." Brooks' face reddened, his jowls trembling. "This is outrageous. You can't barge into my courtroom with accusations." He stopped as Congresswoman Harris raised a hand, her gesture silencing him like a blade. "Judge Brooks," she said, her southern drawl laced with steel, "you've had your say. Now we'll have ours. The Civil Rights Committee has taken an interest in your rulings. You'll answer to us." Evelyn watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable, but inside, her chest tightened with something close to relief. For months, she had carried this fight alone, nights spent poring over case files in her Macon apartment, the hum of her laptop her only company. She had traced Brooks's pattern. Black veterans denied benefits on technicalities, their white counterparts approved without question. She had recorded his offhand remarks, his sneers, his dismissals, all while commanding her airbase and mentoring young airmen. The weight of it had carved lines into her face, hidden beneath her calm. LaToya Green rose from her seat, her voice trembling but clear. "My husband died saving his squad." "You called his sacrifice a technicality. How many others have you buried like that?" The gallery stirred, veterans nodding, their faces tight with shared pain. Brooks shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the corporate lawyer, Emily Klein, who sat frozen, her pen hovering over her notepad. Klein had been part of the machine, representing the insurance firm that profited from denied claims. Now, she looked like a soldier caught in a crossfire. Tate opened his briefcase, pulling out a tablet. "Your Honor, we have recordings, 72 hours of audio from this courtroom. Your words, your rulings, your biases, all documented." He tapped the screen, and Brooks' voice filled the room, tinny but unmistakable. "These people always expect handouts. Medals don't change facts." A gasp rippled through the gallery. The white-haired VFW veteran clenched his fist, his knuckles whitening. Clara Hensley's camera caught the moment, her lens unblinking. Evelyn's jaw tightened, her scars itching under her sleeves. She remembered the first time she heard Brooks' voice on her recordings, the casual cruelty of it. She had sat in her car, parked outside the base, her hands shaking not with anger, but with resolve. That was the night she called Tate, her old JAG friend from Kandahar. "He's not just a bad judge," she had said. "He's a system. We take him down, we take it all down." Brooks slammed his gavel, the sound desperate now. "This is entrapment." "You've fabricated—" Tate cut him off, his voice rising. "Fabricated. General Carter risked her career to expose you. She wore that silver star knowing you'd try to humiliate her. And you did. Right on cue. He turned to the gallery, addressing the veterans directly. This isn't just about one judge. It's about every soldier whose sacrifice was dismissed because of who they are. Congresswoman Harris stepped forward, her eyes locking onto Brooks. Effective immediately, this court is under federal review. Every case you've presided over in the past 5 years will be audited, and you, Judge Brooks, are suspended pending investigation. The words landed like a missile, and Brooks sank into his chair, his face ashen. Emily Klein whispered urgently into her phone, her words inaudible, but her panic clear. Evelyn felt Martinez shift beside her, his breath uneven. "General," he murmured, "I didn't know it had come to this." She gave him a slight nod, her eyes still on Brooks. "You did your job, soldier. Now I'm doing mine." Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the weight of every name on her list. 26 families, 26 stories of loss and betrayal. She had promised them justice, and she would not falter. "Doctor." Vivian Powell rose, her voice carrying the authority of 30 years on the bench. "Judge Brooks, your actions have undermined the integrity of this court. I'm here as an observer for the Federal Judicial Council. Your conduct will be reported." Her words were measured, but they cut deep, and Brooks's hands trembled on the bench. The room buzzed with energy, the gallery alive with whispers and camera flashes. Clara Hensley typed furiously on her phone, her story already taking shape. Tate approached Evelyn, his expression grim but proud. "You did it, Evie. He's finished." She shook her head, her eyes still on LaToya, who wept silently in the front row. "Not yet. Not until she gets what her husband earned." Brooks tried to speak, his voice hoarse. "This is my court." "You can't—" Harris cut him off. "Not anymore." She nodded to Vaughn, the prosecutor, who stepped forward with a document. "Judge Brooks, you'll be served with a formal complaint by end of day. I suggest you find counsel." The gavel slipped from Brooks' hand, clattering to the floor. Evelyn stepped into the courtroom, her boots echoing in the silence. Every eye turned to her, but she looked only at LaToya. The widow stood, her flag clutched to her chest, and ran to Evelyn, collapsing into her arms. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you for fighting for him." Evelyn held her, her own eyes dry but heavy. The silver star pressed against her chest, a reminder of the cost of this moment. Outside, the Georgia sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps. Evelyn knew this was not the end. Brooks was one man, but the system he served was vast, rooted deep. She had struck a blow, but the war was far from over. As Tate and Harris flanked her, their voices low with plans for the next steps, Evelyn felt the transmitter's faint hum against her skin. The fight had just begun, and she was ready. The Macon evening pressed against the windows of Evelyn Carter's apartment, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and magnolia. Major General Evelyn Carter sat at her kitchen table, her Air Force blues draped over a chair, the silver star glinting in the lamplight. Her civilian clothes, a worn gray sweater and jeans, felt foreign after the day's battle, but the weight of her mission clung to her like humidity. A laptop hummed before her, its screen displaying a spreadsheet. Names, dates, case numbers. 26 black veterans, their lives dissected into rows and columns, each a story of loss buried by Judge Harlan Brooks's gavel. Her fingers hovered over the keys, hesitating, as thunder rumbled outside. In the courthouse, hours earlier, the air had crackled with the aftermath of Brooks's suspension. The gallery had erupted into whispers and flashes as reporters scrambled for quotes. Congresswoman Lena Harris had stood at the podium, her voice steady, promising a full federal probe. Marcus Tate, the civil rights lawyer, had gathered his team, their briefcases snapping shut like rifle bolts. LaToya Green, the airman's widow, had clung to Evelyn, her tears soaking the general's uniform. You gave him back to me, she had said, her voice raw. Evelyn had nodded, her throat tight, but her eyes had stayed on Brooks as he was escorted out, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. Now, alone, Evelyn felt the silence of her apartment like a held breath. The walls held no photos, no mementos of her 22 years in the Air Force, just a single framed letter from her father, a Vietnam vet, written before he died. Strength is carrying what no one sees, it read. She traced the words with her eyes, her scars itching under her sweater. The cockpit fire in Fallujah had left more than marks on her skin. It had burned away any illusion of fairness. She had learned then that respect was not given. It was fought for, inch by bloody inch. Her phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. A text from Clara Hensley, the journalist. Story goes live at midnight. You ready for the storm? Evelyn's lips twitched, not quite a smile. She typed back, Born ready. Clara's article, backed by Evelyn's recordings, would hit every major outlet, exposing Brooks's bias to the nation. But Evelyn knew the cost. Her name, her face, her silver star, they would be dissected, judged, weaponized. She had seen it before. A black woman in power, daring to challenge the system, became a target for every coward with a keyboard. A knock at the door jolted her. She rose, her bare feet silent on the hardwood, and peered through the peephole. Martinez, the security guard from the courthouse, stood in the rain, his uniform damp, his desert-tan boots scuffed. She opened the door, the cool air rushing in. Martinez, she said, her voice steady but curious. What brings you here? He shifted, water dripping from his cap. General, I needed to say something. His eyes, dark with guilt, met hers. In the courtroom, I followed orders. I shouldn't have. I saw what you were doing, and I... He stopped, his hands clenching. I'm sorry. Evelyn studied him, seeing the boy beneath the soldier, the kid who had survived Iraq only to guard a corrupt judge's ego. You did your duty, she said, her tone firm but not unkind. Sometimes duty's a trap. You broke free today. She stepped aside. Come in, you're soaked. He hesitated, then entered, his boots leaving faint prints on her floor. She handed him a towel and he mumbled thanks, wiping his face. I kept thinking about my brother, he said, his voice low. He was a Marine. Died in Mosul. His benefits got tied up in Brooks' court. Took 2 years to get them. I didn't know it was a pattern until today. Evelyn's chest tightened. She gestured to a chair, and he sat, the towel clutched in his hands. Your brother's name, she said. What was it? Javier, Martinez said, his voice catching. Javier Martinez. 24 when he died. Evelyn nodded, committing the name to memory. Another ghost to carry, another reason to fight. She opened her laptop, adding Javier's name to her list. He'll be part of this, she said. I promise. Martinez looked at her, his eyes searching. Why do it, General? You could have stayed quiet, kept your career clean. Why risk everything? She leaned back, the chair creaking under her. Because silence is a choice, Martinez, and I've seen what it costs. Her mind flashed to Fallujah, to the co-pilot she couldn't save, his screams fading as she dragged him from the wreckage. She had worn his dog tags for years, a reminder of promises kept. Those families, your brother, LaToya's husband, they deserve better. We all do. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the windows. Martinez nodded, his shoulders easing slightly. What happens now? He asked. Now, Evelyn said, we wait for the world to see what we saw. She glanced at her laptop, where an email from Marcus Tate waited, marked urgent. Brooks is lawyering up. Insurance firms panicking. We need you in Atlanta tomorrow. She closed the laptop, her jaw set. The fight was moving faster than she'd expected. Across town, in a dimly lit bar, Emily Klein, the corporate lawyer, nursed a whiskey, her tailored suit rumpled. Her phone buzzed with messages from her firm demanding updates, but she ignored them. She had seen Evelyn's evidence, heard Brooks' voice on those recordings, smug and unapologetic. It had shaken her, cracked something she hadn't known was fragile. She remembered her father, a Navy vet, denied benefits for years before his death. Had Brooks been part of that too? She drained her glass, her hands trembling, and dialed a number she hadn't called in years, a pro bono lawyer who specialized in veterans' rights. Back at the apartment, Evelyn walked Martinez to the door, the rain now a steady roar. "You're part of this now," she said, her voice carrying the weight of a command. "Don't forget that." He nodded, his face resolute, and stepped into the storm. Evelyn closed the door, her apartment silent again. She returned to her laptop, opening Tate's email. Attached was a draft of the federal complaint, 60 pages of meticulous detail, her recordings cited as primary evidence. She skimmed it, her eyes catching on a line. Major General Evelyn Carter, acting in service to justice, exposed a systemic failure. Service. The word grounded her, tethered her to the fight. She stood, crossing to the window, the city blurred by rain. Her reflection stared back, tired, unyielding, the scars hidden but ever present. Brooks was down, but others like him thrived in the shadows, their gavels quiet but deadly. She thought of LaToya, of Martinez, of the 26 names on her list. Their trust was her armor, their pain her fuel. Her phone lit up with a breaking news alert. Georgia judge suspended amid bias allegations. Clara's story had gone live. Evelyn's name was there, her silver star a symbol in the headline. The storm was here, and she was its eye, calm, focused, ready for what came next. But as she turned from the window, a new sound broke the silence. A faint, deliberate knock at her door. Not Martinez, not Tate. Someone else. Her hand instinctively went to the knife she kept in her drawer, her pulse quickening. She approached the door, her breath steady, and peered through the peephole. The hallway was empty, but a single envelope lay on the mat, her name scrawled in sharp, unfamiliar ink. Rain lashed the windows of Evelyn Carter's Macon apartment, the storm's roar muffling the city beyond. Major General Evelyn Carter stood frozen, her hand gripping the knife from her kitchen drawer, its blade cold against her palm. The envelope on her doorstep lay on the table now, unopened, her name scrawled in black ink that bled slightly from the wet paper. Her pulse thrummed, not with fear, but with the honed instinct of a woman who had survived ambushes in war zones. She set the knife down, her scars tingling under her sweater, and reached for the envelope. The paper was heavy, expensive, the kind used for legal summons or threats. Hours earlier, the courthouse had been a battlefield. Judge Harlan Brooks' suspension had left the gallery buzzing, veterans whispering, reporters typing furiously. Congresswoman Lena Harris had promised a federal probe, her words sharp as shrapnel. Marcus Tate, Evelyn's lawyer, had laid out the evidence. 6 months of recordings, 26 cases of bias against black veterans. LaToya Green, the airman's widow, had embraced Evelyn, her gratitude heavy as the folded flag she clutched. Evelyn had felt the weight of every eye, every camera, but her focus had stayed on Brooks's retreat, his face pale, his power crumbling. Now, alone, Evelyn slit the envelope with a steady hand. Inside was a single sheet, typed, unsigned. "You've started a war you can't win, General. Step back or we'll bury you with him." The words were stark, clinical, but they carried a menace that made her skin prickle. No return address, no letterhead, just the faint scent of cigarette smoke clinging to the paper. She turned the envelope over, noting the lack of postmark, hand-delivered. Someone had stood outside her door, close enough to hear her breathe. Her phone buzzed, shattering the silence. A message from Marcus Tate. Meet me in Atlanta, 0700. Brooks' firm is circling. We need to strategize. Evelyn typed a quick reply, on my way, and glanced at the letter again. She knew the hymn it referenced. Brooks, now a wounded animal, backed by an insurance firm with millions to lose if her evidence held. The threat was not personal. It was systemic, a machine protecting its own. She folded the letter and tucked it into her laptop case, evidence of a new front in her war. The apartment felt smaller now, the walls closing in. Evelyn crossed to her closet, pulling out her go bag, habit from years of deployments. Inside were essentials, clothes, a burner phone, a USB drive with her recordings backed up. She added the letter, then paused, her eyes catching on her father's framed words. Strength is carrying what no one sees. Her jaw tightened. She had carried plenty, Fallujah's flames, the screams of her co-pilot, the silent judgment of men like Brooks. This was just another load. She drove through the storm, her Jeep's wipers slapping rhythmically, the headlights cutting through sheets of rain. Macon's streets were empty, the city hunkered down, but Evelyn's mind raced. The letter's tone suggested insider knowledge, someone close to Brooks, maybe the corporate lawyer, Emily Klein, or higher up the chain. Klein had been rattled in court, her composure cracking as Evelyn's evidence played. But a threat this bold? It felt like the firm itself, flexing muscle to scare her off. Atlanta loomed ahead, its skyline blurred by rain. Evelyn pulled into a diner off I-75, its neon sign flickering. She needed coffee, clarity, and a moment to think. The diner smelled of grease and burned toast, its booths filled with truckers and night shift workers. She slid into a corner seat, her back to the wall, and ordered black coffee. The waitress, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading Darlene, set the mug down. "Rough night, hun?" she asked, her drawl soft. "Rough life," Evelyn said, her lips twitching. Darlene chuckled and moved on, leaving Evelyn to her thoughts. She opened her laptop, connecting to the diner's Wi-Fi, and checked Clara Hensley's article. It was everywhere now. CNN, NPR, The Washington Post. Georgia judge suspended. Amid racial bias scandal, Air Force general's evidence sparks outrage. Her name trended on X, her silver star a symbol of defiance, but the comments were a minefield. Praise from veterans, venom from anonymous trolls calling her a traitor, a race baiter, worse. A man slid into the booth across from her, uninvited. Mid-40s, lean, with a cheap suit and eyes like a hawk. "General Carter," he said, his voice low, clipped. "You're hard to track." Evelyn's hand slid toward her knife, concealed in her jacket. "And you are?" she asked, her tone ice. "Name's irrelevant," he said, leaning forward. "I represent certain interests." The letter was a courtesy. Walk away and you keep your stars. Push this, and we'll dig up every mistake you've ever made. Fallujah, for starters. Her scars burned at the mention, a memory of fire and failure. She leaned back, studying him. His suit screamed corporate fixer, the kind hired to clean messes like Brooks. "You think you scare me?" she said, her voice steady. "I've faced worse than you in sandstorms." She sipped her coffee, her eyes never leaving his. "Tell your bosses, I don't fold." He smirked, sliding a business card across the table, blank except for a phone number. "You'll call when you're ready to deal." He stood, leaving a 20 on the table, and walked out into the rain. Evelyn pocketed the card, her mind cataloging details. His limp, his northern accent, the nicotine stain on his thumb. She'd find him later. Her phone buzzed again. Clara Hensley. "Got a lead on Klein. She's meeting someone at the firm tonight." "Want me to dig?" Evelyn replied, "Careful. They're watching. She paid for her coffee and stepped into the storm, the diner's warmth fading behind her. Atlanta was an hour away, and Tate was waiting. But the letter, the fixer, the mention of Fallujah, they were pieces of a puzzle she hadn't fully mapped. She drove on, the rain a relentless drumbeat. Her thoughts turned to LaToya Green, to Martinez's brother, to the 26 names on her list. Their trust anchored her, their pain a fire in her chest. But Fallujah lingered, a ghost she couldn't outrun. The co-pilot's face, young, terrified, flashed in her mind, his dog tags heavy in her memory. She had saved the crew, earned the Silver Star, but not him. The fixer knew that wound, and he'd try to cut deeper. Atlanta's lights broke through the rain, a beacon, and a battlefield. Evelyn parked outside Tate's office, a nondescript building with a flickering street lamp. She checked her watch. 0600. Tate would be there, his team ready to weaponize her evidence. But as she stepped out, her phone vibrated with an unknown number. She answered, silent, listening. "General," a woman's voice said, strained, familiar. "Emily Klein. I need to talk." "Not on the phone. I'm at the old warehouse on Peachtree by the tracks. Come alone." The line went dead. Evelyn stood in the rain, her Jeep's engine ticking as it cooled. Klein, the corporate lawyer, had been Brooks's shield, but her panic in court had betrayed cracks. Was this a trap or a defection? Evelyn's hand brushed the USB drive in her pocket, her recordings a lifeline. She could call Tate, bring backup, play it safe. But Klein's voice, shaky, desperate, echoed LaToya's, Martinez's, her father's. Another soul caught in the system's gears. She got back in the Jeep, the address punched into her GPS. Peachtree was 10 minutes away, a derelict stretch of warehouses where deals went to die. Evelyn's scars itched, her instincts screaming caution, but her resolve was iron. If Klein was turning, Evelyn would meet her halfway. If it was a trap, she'd face it head-on. The rain fell harder, blurring the road ahead, but Evelyn drove steady, her Silver Star a silent vow against her chest. The war was escalating, and she was its center. The warehouse district on Peachtree smelled of rust and forgotten cargo, the rain hammering its corrugated roofs like machine gun fire. Major General Evelyn Carter parked her Jeep in the shadows, the engine's tick swallowed by the storm. Her Silver Star pressed against her chest, hidden beneath a black raincoat, its weight a reminder of vows unbroken. The call from Emily Klein, the corporate lawyer, echoed in her mind. Desperate, brittle, a crack in the enemy's armor. Evelyn gripped her burner phone, the USB drive with her recordings secure in her pocket. Her scars itched, the ghosts of Fallujah whispering caution. But she stepped into the rain, her boots splashing through oily puddles. The warehouse loomed ahead, its windows dark, jagged teeth in a rotting jaw. A single street lamp flickered, casting long shadows that danced with the downpour. Evelyn scanned the lot. No cars, no movement, only the hiss of rain and the distant wail of a train. Her hand brushed the knife in her coat, a habit from years of walking into the unknown. Klein had said to come alone, but Evelyn knew better than to trust a voice on a phone. The fixer's threat, "We'll bury you with him," lingered, sharp as shrapnel. This could be his move. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern of damp concrete and rusted beams, the air thick with mildew. A faint glow spilled from a corner, where a battery-powered lantern sat on a crate. Emily Klein stood beside it, her tailored suit traded for jeans and a hoodie, her blonde hair damp and stringy. Her hands twisted together, her eyes darting like a cornered animal's. "General," she said, her voice barely above the rain's drumbeat. "You came!" Evelyn stopped 10 feet away, her posture loose but ready, rain dripping from her hood. "You sounded like you had something to say, Klein. Say it." Her tone was steel, honed from commanding airmen under fire. She studied Klein's face, pale, hollow, the kind of fear that came from seeing the machine you served turn on you. Klein swallowed, glancing at the shadows. I'm done with them. The firm, Brooks, all of it. They're planning to destroy you. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. They've got dirt. Your missions, your record, Fallujah. They'll twist it, make you look reckless, unstable. I heard them tonight. They're meeting with a PR firm to smear you. Evelyn's jaw tightened, her scars burning under her coat. Fallujah again, her co-pilot's screams, the fire she couldn't outrun. The Silver Star had come at a cost, one the Fixer and his bosses knew how to exploit. Why tell me? She asked, her eyes locked on Klein's. You've been their shield for years. What changed? Klein's hands shook, her breath uneven. My father was Navy, died waiting for benefits Brooks denied. I didn't see it then, thought it was just bureaucracy. But your recordings... She trailed off, her eyes wet. I heard him dismiss my dad's case, same as LaToya's husband. Called it another sob story. I can't unhear that. Evelyn nodded, her expression unreadable, but inside her mind raced. Klein was a defector, but defectors could be plants. She stepped closer, her voice low. You want redemption? You earn it. Give me names, dates, proof. Otherwise, you're just another voice in the dark. Klein fumbled in her hoodie, pulling out a flash drive. Emails, memos, call logs. The firm's been rigging cases for years, not just Brooks. They've got judges in 3 states, a network. I copied what I could before they locked me out. She held it out, her hand trembling. Take it, but they know I'm here. They're watching. Evelyn took the drive, her fingers brushing Klein's, cold, clammy. She pocketed it, her eyes scanning the warehouse. The rain's rhythm shifted, a faint scrape echoing from the far wall. Her pulse quickened, instincts flaring. Who else knows you're here? She asked, her voice sharp. Klein's eyes widened. No one, I swear. Wait! A shadow moved, swift, near the entrance. Evelyn grabbed Klein's arm, pulling her behind a stack of crates. Her knife was out now, its blade catching the lantern's glow. Footsteps splashed outside, deliberate, closing in. The Fixer, or someone worse. Evelyn's mind flashed to LaToya Green, to Martinez's brother, to the 26 names on her list. She wouldn't let them down. Stay low, she whispered, her voice a command. Klein nodded, her breath ragged. Evelyn crept toward the sound, her boots silent on the concrete. The lantern's light was a liability now. She kicked it over, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Her eyes adjusted, picking out shapes, barrels, beams, a figure slipping through a side door. Male, lean, the same limp as the Fixer from the diner. She moved like a ghost, flanking him, her knife ready. He paused, his silhouette outlined by a flash of lightning, a phone pressed to his ear. She's here, he muttered. Klein, too. We end this now. Evelyn's blood ran cold, but her focus was iron. She lunged, her arm locking around his throat, the knife at his jugular. Drop it, she hissed. The phone clattered to the floor, its screen glowing with a half-cent text. Neutralize Carter. He struggled, but Evelyn was stronger, her grip forged in combat. Who sent you? She demanded, her voice low, lethal. He choked out a laugh, his breath sour with nicotine. You're already dead, General. You just don't know it. A crash came from the crates. Klein, panicking, knocking over a barrel. The noise drew a second figure from the shadows, this one armed, a pistol glinting. Evelyn released the Fixer, shoving him into a beam, and dove behind a crate as a shot rang out, the bullet sparking off concrete. Klein screamed, scrambling toward the exit. Evelyn's mind raced. 2 hostiles, one armed, Klein exposed. She had seconds. She grabbed a rusted pipe from the floor, hurling it at the gunman's legs. He stumbled, his shot going wide, and Evelyn was on him, her knife slashing his wrist. The pistol skittered across the floor. She kicked it away, her boot connecting with his jaw, dropping him. The fixer lunged at her, but she sidestepped, slamming his head into a crate. He crumpled, groaning. Klein was at the door now, sobbing, clutching the frame. Evelyn grabbed her, pulling her into the rain. "Move!" she barked, shoving Klein toward the Jeep. The warehouse was silent again, but Evelyn knew more would come. She started the engine, tires screeching as she peeled out, Klein shaking in the passenger seat. "They'll kill me!" Klein gasped. "They know I talked." "They'll try," Evelyn said, her eyes on the road, rain blurring the windshield. She handed Klein the burner phone. "Call Tate. Tell him everything." Klein nodded, fumbling with the phone, her voice trembling as she dialed. Evelyn's hands gripped the wheel, her scars a map of battles won and lost. The flash drive in her pocket was a bomb now, its contents enough to gut the firm, maybe the whole network. But the fixer's words, "You're already dead," clung to her, a warning of deeper shadows. Fallujah's ghost stirred, her co-pilot's face flickering in the rain-streaked glass. She pushed it down, focusing on the road, on Klein's voice, on the fight. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She let it ring, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. A black SUV trailed them, its headlights cutting through the storm. Klein's call connected, Tate's voice crackling through. "Evie, where are you?" he asked, urgent. "Trouble's following," Evelyn said, her voice calm, her foot pressing the gas. The SUV accelerated, closing the gap. She swerved onto a side street, the Jeep fishtailing, Klein gripping the dash. The warehouse was behind them, but the war was everywhere now, and Evelyn was its heart, beating fierce, unyielding. The Jeep's tires screamed against wet asphalt as Major General Evelyn Carter whipped through Atlanta's back streets, the black SUV's headlights a relentless glare in her rearview mirror. Rain lashed the windshield, the wipers barely keeping pace. Emily Klein clutched the burner phone, her voice shaking as she relayed the warehouse ambush to Marcus Tate. "2 men, 1 armed," she stammered. "They knew I was meeting her." Evelyn's silver star pressed against her chest beneath her raincoat, a silent anchor as her scars burned with memory. Fallujah's flames, the co-pilot she couldn't save. Her eyes flicked to the side mirror. The SUV was gaining, its engine a low growl through the storm. "Evie, get to my office." Tate's voice crackled through the phone, sharp with urgency. "Feds are on alert. We've got Klein's drive. Game changer." "Stay alive." Evelyn grunted acknowledgement, her hands steady on the wheel despite the Jeep's shuddering turns. The flash drive in her pocket, Klein's evidence of the firm's network, held names, dates, a web of corruption tying Brooks to judges across 3 states. It was enough to burn the system down, but only if she survived the night. Klein's breath hitched, her eyes wide. "They're closer," she whispered, glancing back. Evelyn swerved into an alley, the Jeep scraping a dumpster, sparks flaring in the dark. The SUV followed, its headlights flooding the narrow space. Evelyn's mind raced, outmaneuver, outthink, survive. She knew these streets from her early days at Dobbins Air Reserve Base, the shortcuts and dead ends. She floored the gas, the Jeep lurching onto a service road behind a shuttered factory, the SUV momentarily lost in the maze. "Hold on," Evelyn said, her voice calm, commanding. Klein gripped the dash, her knuckles white. The road ended at a chain-link gate, padlocked, the factory's skeleton looming beyond. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She rammed the gate, the Jeep's bumper tearing through metal with a screech. The SUV reappeared, its driver reckless, closing fast. Evelyn spun the wheel, veering onto a gravel lot, the tires spitting stones. A plan formed, draw them out, isolate, neutralize. She killed the headlights, plunging the lot into darkness, the rain her only cover. The SUV slowed, its driver cautious now, unsure of her position. Evelyn parked behind a rusted shipping container, her breath steady, her knife in hand. "Stay here," she told Klein, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Lock the doors." Klein nodded, her face pale, and Evelyn slipped out, her boots silent on the gravel. The storm masked her movements as she circled wide, flanking the SUV. Its doors opened, two figures emerging, both male, one with the fixer's limp, the other broader, likely the gunman from the warehouse. They moved with trained precision, their flashlights cutting through the rain. Evelyn crouched behind a stack of pallets, her scars a dull ache, her mind clear. She had faced worse odds in war zones. This was just another mission. The fixer's voice carried, low but sharp. "She's here. Find her." The gunman nodded, his pistol drawn, sweeping the lot. Evelyn waited, her body coiled until the gunman passed her position. She struck, silent and swift, her knife slashing his Achilles tendon. He collapsed with a grunt, the pistol skittering across the gravel. She kicked it into a puddle, her boot connecting with his temple, knocking him out. The fixer spun, his flashlight beam catching her raincoat. "Carter!" he snarled, drawing a knife of his own. Evelyn didn't flinch. She stepped into the light, her blade ready, rain streaming down her face. "You're out of moves," she said, her voice cutting through the storm. "Drop it or you're next." He lunged, sloppy with rage, and Evelyn sidestepped, her training taking over. She grabbed his wrist, twisting until the knife fell, then slammed her elbow into his jaw. He staggered and she swept his legs, pinning him face down in the mud. "Who sent you?" she demanded, her knee on his spine, her blade at his neck. He gasped, blood mixing with rain. "The firm. They own everything. You'll never touch them." Headlights flashed, another vehicle, not the SUV. Evelyn dragged the fixer behind the container, her grip iron. A black sedan pulled up, its doors opening to reveal Marcus Tate and Daniel Vaughn, the federal prosecutor. "Evie!" Tate called, his voice sharp with relief. Vaughn drew his sidearm, scanning the lot. Evelyn stood, hauling the fixer to his feet, her knife still at his throat. "Got a present for you," she said, shoving him toward Vaughn. Klein stumbled from the jeep, her hoodie soaked, her eyes wide with shock. "They're down," she said, her voice trembling. You took them out." Evelyn ignored the awe, her focus on Tate. "The drive," she said, pulling it from her pocket. "It's real. Klein's defecting." "But they're not done." Tate took the drive, his face grim. "We've got enough to indict the firm's board, maybe more, but they'll hit back hard." "You're a target now, Evie." Vaughn cuffed the fixer, reading him his rights, while Tate pulled Evelyn aside. "Clara's story's gone viral. X is exploding, veterans rallying, trolls raging. Congresswoman Harris is pushing for a Senate hearing. This is bigger than Brooks." Evelyn nodded, rain dripping from her hood. She thought of LaToya Green, clutching her husband's flag, of Martinez's brother, of the 26 names on her list. Their faces grounded her, their trust a shield. But the fixer's words, "They own everything," gnawed at her. Fallujah's ghost stirred, her co-pilot's dog tags heavy in her memory. She had failed him, but she wouldn't fail these families. Vaughn approached, his badge glinting. "We've got the gunman, too." "Both are tied to the firm's security contractor. We'll lean on them, get names." He glanced at Klein, who stood shivering, her eyes on the ground. "She's a liability, General." "If she's playing us—" "She's not," Evelyn said, her tone final. She saw Klein's fear, her guilt, the echo of her own scars. "She's in, or she's dead." "They don't forgive traitors." Klein met her eyes, a flicker of resolve breaking through her panic. "I'll testify," she said, her voice steadier. "Whatever it takes." Tate's phone buzzed, an alert from his office. Feds just raided the firm's Atlanta branch, seized servers, documents. Your recordings, Evie, they're tearing the place apart. Evelyn's lips twitched, not quite a smile. The machine was cracking, but it wasn't broken. Not yet. The rain slowed, the storm's edge passing. Evelyn glanced at the fixer, now slumped in Vaughn's custody, his bravado gone. She thought of the letter on her doorstep, the threat to bury her with Fallujah. They'd try. She knew it. But she had survived fire before, and she'd survive this. Tate clapped her shoulder. Get some rest, Evie. We've got a war room at 0800. Harris wants you there. Evelyn nodded, but rest was a luxury she couldn't afford. She turned to Klein. You're with me. No motels, no calls, we stay off the grid. Klein nodded, her fear tempered by necessity. As they climbed into the Jeep, Evelyn's burner phone vibrated. An unknown number again. She stared at the screen, her thumb hovering. Tate noticed, his eyes narrowing. Don't answer, he said. Not until we know who's leaking your moves. Evelyn pocketed the phone, her jaw set. The SUV was gone, the fixer and gunman in custody, but the firm's shadow loomed larger, its reach deeper than she'd feared. She started the engine, the Jeep's rumble a promise of fights to come. Klein sat silent, her hands clasped, a soldier drafted into a war she hadn't chosen. Evelyn glanced at her, then at the road, the city's lights smearing through the rain. The phone buzzed again, insistent. A taunt. Evelyn's scars ached, her silver star a vow against her chest. The enemy was close, closer than she knew, and the next move wasn't hers. The Atlanta dawn broke gray and heavy, the air thick with the promise of more rain. Major General Evelyn Carter stood in Marcus Tate's law office, her silver star pinned proudly to her Air Force blues, its gleam a defiance against the storm of the past night. Her scars ached beneath her uniform, a quiet reminder of Fallujah's fire, but her posture was unyielding. Emily Klein sat nearby, her hoodie traded for a borrowed blazer, her eyes hollow but resolute. The war room buzzed with activity. Laptops humming, phones ringing, aides shuttling documents. Congresswoman Lena Harris leaned over a table, her pearl earrings catching the light as she reviewed Klein's flash drive. Daniel Vaughn, the federal prosecutor, stood by a whiteboard, mapping the firm's network. Judges, executives, shell companies. Evelyn's recordings, 6 months of surgical precision, had cracked the machine wide open. The night's ambush at the warehouse lingered in Evelyn's bones. The fixer's words, "They own everything," echoed, a warning of the enemy's reach. She had driven Klein to Tate's safe house after the chase, the black SUV's headlights fading but not forgotten. Her burner phone, now silent, sat in her pocket, its unanswered calls a ghost she couldn't shake. The firm was wounded, but wounded animals fought hardest. She glanced at Klein, who clutched a coffee mug, her knuckles pale. Defector or not, Klein was hers to protect now, a soldier in a war she'd helped start. Tate approached, his navy suit rumpled from a sleepless night. Evie, the feds are moving fast. Klein's drive names 3 more judges, 2 in Florida, 1 in Tennessee. We've got warrants out, but the firm's lawyering up. He handed her a tablet, its screen showing a CNN headline. Air Force General's evidence sparks federal raids on insurance giant. Her name, her silver star, her face. They were everywhere now, a beacon for some, a target for others. Harris wants you at the Senate hearing tomorrow, Tate added. You're the face of this. Evelyn's jaw tightened. She'd never wanted the spotlight, only justice, for LaToya Green, for Martinez's brother, for the 26 black veterans on her list. I'm not here for cameras, she said, her voice low, steady. I'm here for them. Tate nodded, his eyes warm with understanding. I know, but the cameras are how we win this. Your story, your fight, it's waking people up. Across the room, Harris called them over, her voice cutting through the buzz. "General Ms. Klein, we need to talk strategy." She gestured to a conference table where Clara Hensley, the journalist, sat typing furiously, her glasses slipping down her nose. Vaughn joined them, his badge clipped to his belt, a stack of affidavits in hand. "The firm's board is panicking," Harris said, her southern drawl sharp. "They're offering a settlement, $50 million to the affected families, no admission of guilt. They want this buried." Klein's breath caught, her eyes darting to Evelyn. "They're buying silence," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "That's what they do. I've seen it. Families take the money, sign NDAs, and the system rolls on." Evelyn studied her, seeing the guilt etched in her face, the shadow of her father's denied benefits. "No deals," Evelyn said, her tone final. "We expose them, root and branch. No one else gets buried." Harris nodded, her lips curving slightly. "That's what I thought you'd say. But we've got a problem. The firm's hired a crisis firm, same one that spun the opioid scandals. They're digging into your past, General. Fallujah, your early commands, anything to paint you as reckless." Evelyn's scars burned, her co-pilot's screams flickering in her mind. She'd saved her crew, earned the Silver Star, but the cost, his life, haunted her. The firm knew that wound, and they'd cut deep. Vaughn leaned forward, his voice measured. "We've got their fixer in custody, but he's not talking. The gunman's lawyered up too. We need more. Something to tie the firm's board directly to Brooks' rulings." He glanced at Klein. "Your drive's a start, but we need corroboration. Can you get us someone inside?" Klein's hands shook, but she nodded. "There's a paralegal, Jenna Walsh. She's been with the firm 10 years, knows everything." "She's scared, but I can reach her." Evelyn met her eyes, seeing resolve tempered by fear. "Do it," Evelyn said, "but you stay off their radar." "No risks." The room stilled as an aide rushed in, her face pale. "General, you need to see this." She handed Evelyn a tablet, its screen showing a breaking news alert. "Leaked Air Force report questions General Carter's actions in Fallujah incident." The article, sourced anonymously, claimed she'd ignored protocol, risking her crew. Lies, twisted from half-truths, but the timing was surgical. The firm was hitting back and they'd drawn blood. Evelyn's chest tightened, but her face remained stone. She handed the tablet back, her voice calm. "Let them swing. We've got work to do." Tate's eyes narrowed, but he nodded, trusting her resolve. Harris stood, her presence commanding. "This is war, General. They'll come for your reputation, your career, your soul." "You ready?" "Always," Evelyn said, her silver star a vow against her chest. She thought of LaToya, clutching her husband's flag, of Martinez's apology, of the 26 names she carried. Their trust was her armor, their pain her fire. But the leaked report stung, a crack in her shield. Fallujah's ghost, her co-pilot's face, loomed closer, his dog tags heavy in her memory. Clara Hensley looked up from her laptop, her voice urgent. "I've got a source at the Pentagon. They're calling the leak a fabrication, but it's gaining traction on X. Trolls are eating it up." She pushed her glasses up, her eyes meeting Evelyn's. "I can counter it. Run a piece on your service, your evidence, the families, but I need your go-ahead." "Do it," Evelyn said, her tone unyielding. "Tell the truth." "All of it," Clara nodded, her fingers flying over the keys. Evelyn turned to Klein. "Reach Walsh!" "We end this now." Klein pulled out a phone, her hands steadier, and stepped into a corner to make the call. The room pulsed with purpose, but Evelyn felt a shift, a tightening in the air. Her burner phone buzzed again, another unknown number. She stared at it, her thumb hovering, Tate's warning echoing, "Don't answer." But the calls were too frequent, too precise. Someone knew her moves, her allies, her weaknesses. She pocketed the phone, her jaw set, and crossed to the window, Atlanta's skyline blurred by clouds. Outside, a black sedan idled across the street, its windows tinted, its engine silent. Evelyn's pulse quickened, her instincts flaring. She signaled Tate, her gesture subtle, and he joined her, his eyes narrowing as he spotted the car. "They're not done," he murmured. "Vaughn, get security." Before Vaughn could move, the sedan's door opened and a woman stepped out, mid-50s, elegant, her gray hair pulled tight. Dr. Vivian Powell, the retired federal judge, Evelyn's quiet ally from the courthouse. She carried a briefcase, her stride purposeful as she crossed the street. Evelyn exhaled, her tension easing but only slightly. Powell's presence was no coincidence. Powell entered, her eyes locking onto Evelyn's. "General, we need to talk. Alone." Her voice was low, urgent, her briefcase heavy in her hand. Tate hesitated, but Evelyn nodded, leading Powell to a side office. The door closed, the war room's buzz fading behind them. Powell set her briefcase down, her face grim. "I've been digging since the courthouse. The firm's not just a business, it's a machine tied to political donors, even a senator. Your evidence threatens their foundation." She opened the briefcase, revealing a dossier, photos, emails, bank records. "This came from a source in D.C. They're planning to frame you for treason, using Fallujah as the hook. You need to move faster than they do." Evelyn's scars burned, her co-pilot's screams louder now. "Treason." The word was a blade, sharper than any the firm had swung. She took the dossier, her hands steady, her eyes scanning the pages. Names she recognized. Powerful, untouchable. Her war had grown, its stakes higher than she'd imagined. She looked at Powell, her voice iron. "We take them all down." "No one walks." Powell nodded, her eyes fierce. "Then you'd better be ready to lose everything, General. Because they will." Outside, the sedan was gone, but the clouds hung low, heavy with the promise of a reckoning. Evelyn's silver star gleamed, her resolve unbroken, but the dossier in her hands was a ticking bomb, and the clock was running out.